Hi, welcome back, everyone. Mynor here with Mike Domico, and this is Advanced Insurance Services, and we're really diving into the from the previous video that we did regarding the history of life insurance and how life insurance is sold to consumers. And so today in this episode, we're going to dive into some very common models today. One of them being the recruiting model, and the contrast to that would be similar, but there's a little difference, is the lead space model. And we'll get into that, with Mike, but I want to kind of set it up like this. And the if you're a new life insurance agent, if you're considering, going into life insurance, you'll probably be presented with one model that basically says, hey, look, you can come in, pay the entrance fee of some sort, let's call it a couple $100, and you got to pay for your license, and then you'll get the training, and Mike will talk about that.
Yeah.
It kind of how the submission is. And so, but the idea is that if you don't have a huge center of influence where the lead agent, senior agent, however you want to call them, goes in and basically works the market with you, your your ability of having a center of influence and the amount of people that you can put in front of that trainer is the marketing. That's one factor. The other side is you start under the lead space model, which is very similar. Maybe a couple $100 to get your processing paperwork. Maybe you pay for your license, and then the idea is that you might not have a center of influence, but you'll start by paying, on a weekly or monthly basis, some kind of a lead fund, so that you can have the opportunity to follow up with the people that submitted them. And I think these companies basically, work on developing ideas and advertising for direct mail, where they collect and then sell the leads to insurance agents. So that's kind of the contrast. But Mike, let's talk a little bit about, what can someone who's looking to get into life insurance, what can they expect if they're confronted with an opportunity with a recruiting model?
Well, thank you, Minor. Appreciate the platform. Um, Let me start with, again, how I started in the industry. I started in 1971, and went with Prudential, and it was what was called Prudential District at the time, and it was a debit. Now, on a debit, I had, I think, about 145 clients, and my job was to go around each client once a month and collect the premiums. And they had, some houses had $10, a month in premiums. Some had 40 or $50 a month in premiums. They were the more affluent. And as part of that, I would get to know the centers of influence in my area, people who knew what was going on, people who had, friends all across the community. And this is how I would find my leads. This is how I would prospect. So I might sit and have a cup of coffee one morning, and while I'm picking up a premium in the house, and uh, the woman of the house would tell me about who's getting married, who left who, and of course all the gory details of that, who's having a baby, when they're due, they're having a shower next week, all these things. And I was able to prospect, and this is how I got most of the business when I started. That's evolved over the years, and I also had a couple weeks of training, because when I went in the industry, you didn't have a license when you started. Nowadays, it seems most companies are asking people to get a license on their own. We actually had training in the agency on the license. I would get the license. My first one was in West Virginia. And then from there, we got training on what do you do with the license? What policies, what products. So that's how I came into the business. Now, from what I've experienced on the recruiting model, you're brought in to a lot of these companies, and you're paired with quote unquote a senior agent. And that's always one of my favorite big lies about this industry nowadays. because the senior agent just happens to be the guy that got through the door 5 minutes before you did. So now you've got nobody that, somebody that knows nothing about insurance teaching somebody that knows even less about insurance how to market insurance. Has some intrinsic problems, to say the least. Not one of my favorite ways for people to start in the business. However, that's what we were confronted with. Also, most of these companies, if they have any training at all, you're lucky. So literally, you're thrown out into the field and you're supposed to learn as you go. And some people think, well, there's nothing to it. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why our industry as a whole is one of the most hated industries in the world. Because as I always say, when you have a new agent, the damage that they're able to do in the first couple of years as a licensed agent is horrendous.
Sometimes irreversible.
Sometimes irreversible. And makes it worse, since these promises that we call life insurance policies are made today, we may not even know what the problem was for 20, 30 years. And again, as you said, they're irreversible. So there's some severe problems in our industry. However, not to be a doom and gloom person, it's just the opposite. I think this is a fantastic industry, but it takes a little more initiative on the part of a new agent to seek out the information and the knowledge that they're going to need to do the best job for their clients. Hopefully, we're one possibility to provide some of that. There are some really great people in other companies that are doing similar to what we're doing in their own company with their own agents. So I would strongly recommend that new agents gravitate to whatever source of education they could get, other than just the agent that beat them through the front door. As a matter of fact, you'd actually invite that person over and get some knowledge together. I do a lot of joint business, as you've heard me talk. And one of the reasons I do a lot of joint business, because sometimes it's even my lead. So it's not like I need another agent. But I like working with agents for the simple reason an agent who's licensed and has some experience is a much more dedicated listener than the average prospect that I talk to. And I'm an ego, total. Okay. I'd like somebody to appreciate what I bring to the table.
Right.
The sale is great, and it's how I make my living, but there's not enough juice in that. Having another agent there who understands what I'm saying and understands how I am helping the client is much more exciting to me than even making the sale itself. I recommend for new agents doing joint work. I don't care so much about having to do it because the company says so, but I would find somebody that you're compatible with, somebody that you enjoy their company, and then learn together. Because with a dedicated listener, when you are talking, a couple things happen. Number one, they can plug the holes when you miss stuff. To this day, I'll miss something. I'll be talking about something, I'll get off on a track, and that's it. And whoever I'm working will say, Mike, by the way, why don't you explain this? And I'll know they put me back on track.
That's right.
Okay. So it really does work, and vice versa. That's one advantage to joint work. The other advantage is I don't care how good you are. I don't care how much you know or don't know. There's a chemistry that no matter how many people I sit down with, there's a certain number of people that don't relate to me, whether I don't relate to them or they don't relate to me or however. And you're not going to overcome that in some cases. A second person could have the chemistry, and that makes all the more difference of having a sale or walking out and not having a sale.
It's a pretty good segue into what I wanted to do is discuss the leads-based model, because you mentioned something really important. I mean, like some in the leads-based model, they will come in and kind of a similar structure. They pay a certain amount, they get started, and they have their upline, trainer, mentor, whatever name they want to give. Very little do they, spend the time with that that new agent to help them through and get over some of the obstacles. And so you're talking about somebody paying 1,500 a week, $2,000 a week to get leads, and then maybe that was the case, that they could never connect with the individuals for whatever reason, and they couldn't overcome that because they were out there trying to run the appointments on their own. And there are some companies that will have the mentor available for them to call them, but how often does that actually really work? And so I think that just knowing what's out there so that the individual can make an informed decision about how they want to get this going. Because here's the other things that we haven't really talked about, all the goodness that the industry has. I mean, I think that both you and I have said this industry has done more for us than we could ever contribute to it. I know that that's a statement you've made. I know for me, it's been life changing in so many different ways. Some of the things that I've been able to learn through it, and now we're in an area where most recruiting based models and the other model of paying leads, they're not going to see this advanced side, the infinite banking, the other people's money, the life settlements, and then the legacy, which now takes it to a totally different level. And most people, don't realize that they could stay in their lane with what they're doing. They could stay in their lane if they're the only, I would say, maybe explain this. The only handcuff would be what the IMO will limit them on doing. Is that about right? I mean, they call it sell
Yeah,
and play or whatever the case may be.
in general on the leads, I'm not a big lover of paying for leads for the simple reason, one of the dirty little secrets in the leads end of our business is that it's unusual for a new agent who's paying 50 cents or a dollar or even $2 per lead. It's they don't realize that there's probably at least 50 or 60 other agents that already had that lead. So they're almost dead on arrival, you know. When I get a new agent, I say, would you really want the most effective lead system in the industry? And they, of course, will sit there, all excited. Yes, how do I do that? I says, go get an old phone book. Now, don't start at A and don't start at Z because that's where everybody starts. Just open up to G or H or I and start making phone calls. And I've shown agents, they laugh at me all the time. They tell me I'm full of it. And I am, but that's another conversation. But I'll sit down with them and I guarantee I will average more appointments and more closes out of a phone book percentage wise than any leads you buy. Until you get into the exclusive, truly exclusive leads, I even question the exclusivity of most of them, which go for $25 to $200 a piece. Until you get to those type of leads, the phone book is just as good. Now, I know a lot of managers out there are going to be all upset with me, and that's fine. It won't be a first, and I guarantee it won't be a last. But try it. To a new agent out there, go ahead and buy your leads. Do what your manager says, for as long as you need that person in your life. However, try it. Make 50 calls out of a phone book. See what happens. Keep the records, and I'll be shocked if the phone book doesn't equal or beat whatever leads you bought.
But Mike, aren't phone books obsolete? I mean, when was the last time you got one delivered?
Well, you may have to go to a library to get one.
Oh,
now.
okay. Okay.
Of course, I think I keep a stack of them. So,
Obviously there's different ways. I mean, there's social media, there's
yeah.
different types of ads that people are putting out there. I think AI is really, coming a long way. with making those connections. But either way you look at it, it's still a people business. And I think that people, new agents, need to have, because everybody's going to present them with the concept of, oh, you've got, you can make this. Nothing is easy. It's simple
Well,
to understand, but
look,
you
we
got to put
talk
in the
about
work.
we talk about this as an industry where you could make six figures.
Mhm.
And this is not an exaggeration. You're not going to do it the first year. Maybe one in 1,000 might do it the first year, but you can make six figures. Show me an industry where you can make six figures by the second or third year that you don't have to invest $500,000 in.
Mhm. Right.
Insurance sales happens to be one of the few.
Right.
So you're giving up maybe something for the sweat equity it takes to get to where you want to go.
Mhm.
So either you buy the leads, or again, what I always tell agents, what I like to do, and I still do it today just for fun of it sometimes, is cold calling businesses.
Mhm.
I'll walk into a shopping plaza with a new agent and just go door to door and introduce myself. And all I do is introduce myself, and then I leave. And I tell the agent, now we're going to do that for the next 5 weeks on the same day, approximately the same time. By the fourth or fifth week, you can't believe the number of people that say, hey, while you're here, I got a question. Bingo.
Mhm.
That's all I need. So again, you just got to get out there. To this day, my wife laughs at me because I give out cards all the time. She says, why are you doing that? I said, well, who knows? I don't know why. I do it. Cards are cheap. So you got to get out in front of people. You got to be exposed in a good sense in your community. Do community work without the aspect of making a sale. I don't like the agents. I don't like to be shunned by groups because I'm an insurance agent. So I don't like the agent that gets pushy. However, go out and work in your community, work in your church, work in your school, help people. And by the way, what do, Mynor? Oh, you're an insurance agent. Oh, thank you. That's all. You don't have to beat people up with it, because if you're doing good work and you're helping your community, guess who they're going to want to talk to about insurance? So exposure, again, in a good sense. Get out there. Let people know who you are. Let people know what you're willing to offer your community. And the other thing is, anytime I hear a conversation about insurance, I butt in. Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhearing. Can't tell you how many times I may have said that. Um, be willing, be willing to do work that you have absolutely no aspect of making a cent. What do I mean? Somebody has a death claim. It isn't even your company. Can I help you? Maybe I can answer some questions for you. This is a service business.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, because of some very bad management and some very poor home offices, we have forgotten that this is service oriented. You go out and service your community, you'll make more money than the guy that goes out with the shiny car and, the perfectly lined smile and all that happy Hollywood stuff. You go out and you take care of your community, they'll take care of you.
Excellent. Let's finish off with your idea of what a functional specialist is, and tie that into what you were just saying about, maybe the home office expects you to, submit a certain number of transactions or applications or whatever the case may be, but you don't need to know everything. And to elevate to the concept of advanced insurance sales.
I first came across the functional specialist idea back in 1970s, early 80s. A gentleman by the name of Paul Windmuller. And unfortunately, I haven't talked to Paul in 30 years, so I don't know where or how he is. He was a regional vice president with Prudential out in Minneapolis. And he had this functional specialist program. And the theory was, rather than an agent trying to learn everything themselves, which is next to impossible in a lifetime, how about if the company, in this case Prudential, had agents that they specially trained to go out into the field on a regional basis, work with agents, and show them how do you do a buy and sell agreement, which they don't even talk about anymore. How do you do a deferred compensation? I guarantee you can't find 5 agents that know what that is. What about a split dollar? 100 agents, you won't find one that knows what that is. These are all concepts. I always laugh when somebody says to me, well, I don't sell life insurance. I sell last expense insurance.
Mortgage protection.
Yeah, I sell mortgage protection, or I sell funeral insurance. Okay, guys, gals, it's all insurance.
All life insurance.
It's all marketing. It's all calling it whatever you want to call it. But the idea of the functional specialist is you take a number of men and women who are trained in different areas, whether it be, business insurance or personal insurance or estate planning, and have them help the agents that don't know some of these things. And like I tell all the agents I work with, you work with me 2 times, you'll know as much about it as I do. It's not magic. It's not that I'm any smarter than you are. It's that I have experience in the different areas. Once you have some experience, you can do. So where I fell into a hole with Prudential is I tried to get them to start a functional specialist on the East Coast and explained how we would do it. However, another dirty secret in our industry is that management, who are usually the most inept salespeople there are, like to make money without having to work for it. And they don't like sharing that. So what happened was home office, I got into a fight with one of the VPs in home office because he wanted me to go out and split commissions with the other agents to do the functional specialist. And I said, no. I said, you got all these managers running around that don't know their tail end from a hole in the ground. And you're paying them override on these agents. So what are they there for other than to report to you? I said, how about if you have people that actually can show agents how to do it? Well, anyway, long story short, I ran the program for 6 months for no pay, did over $500,000 in premium with a number of agents in South Jersey. And then when I went back to Prudential to try to codify it and actually set up a program, they dug their heels in and said, if you don't want to split commissions, we're going to give it to someone else. Well, they did. Someone who thought they were getting something for nothing. And 4 months later, the program died. What I have attempted to do with, of course, Mynor, your help, is bring this full circle. AIS is the functional specialist in the industry. We are going to provide services for agents that they can't get from their own company. It's not that their company's good or bad. It's not that their managers are bad or worse. It's that they can't get the training that we can provide. And what are we charging for? I don't know. Whatever we're charging for, we're underpaid. But here's what's important to anyone out there listening. Listen to some of the seminars. Hear what we got to say. Go out, find some prospects. Maybe if you want to come back to us and do joint work, maybe we could do that. But however you do it, sell one case, whether it's a business case, whether it's a group, whatever type of case it is. That's how you learn this business. Sell that one case. And whatever you paid some idiot like me is going to be far less than all the years it's going to take you to try to stumble along and find the information to do it on your own. And knowing me, you probably won't pay anything, but that's another conversation.
Well, the important thing is that I think the title of the video, I hope it leads you to think further and to think more in depth. We're not talking bad about the industry. We're just exposing what agents fall through and the success ratio being very, very low, like in the under the under 2 digits.
Under 1% a year make it to the second year.
So, we want to make sure that there's sustainability, that there's perpetuity, that there is a way for an insurance agent, to make a living and make an impact.
And Mynor, one of the other one of the other aspects and one of the other features of joint business, and I do this every agent I go out with. I think I've even done it with you. I always ask two questions after an interview. What worked? What didn't work? And, of course, usually the agent says, well, this was great. You said this and this was, I said, okay, that's enough. What didn't work? And they sit there. And I said, you got to find something. Because if you don't find something, then I'm not learning. And if I'm not learning, this interview was for naught. Mm-hmm. So everybody out there wants to adapt themselves to that type of attitude. Every time you talk to somebody, a sale is made. The question is whether you made it or the client made it. So what worked and what didn't work will make you a better agent tomorrow than what you were today.
Yeah. That's a good way to close that out. Guys, keep looking out for the next video. So I'm, interviewing somebody with 50+ years of experience in the insurance industry. You probably want to hear, you want to probably pay attention. I'm just grateful that I have an open door to interview him and bring you this kind of knowledge, because you're probably not going to get it out there. And we discuss a lot of different factors. And of course, in advanced insurance services, our primary goal is to, the 4 pillars of infinite banking, OPM, we're talking about, banking arbitrage, and then life settlements along with legacy planning. So if that's the kind of stuff that you want to hear, we have an entire webinar, series about it. And we will, look forward to connecting with you. There's contact information in the description in the video. Until next time, this is Mynor and Michael signing off. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mynor.